Hello and welcome by the Inside Scoop. Today I have Dorith Mous as a guest with me. She's been a model for 20 years. She's been all over the world and she's had to deal with her own struggles in this business. So, Dorith, I'm going to leave the floor for you. Tell us a little bit more about yourself and how that career as a model has affected your life.
Well, that's not a short story, but first of all, thank you for inviting me to be here and talking about these important topics. I'm delighted that more and more space is being created to talk and listen about these topics that are going on inside of us. I was indeed a model for 20 years. That is a bit broad. I just started really, really young, and I was 14. And I kept doing it while I was investigating other fields in the artistic world. So I started photographing at some point, but I kept on modeling. So the 20 years is a bit broad, but yes, the industry has had me in it for that long. Um, and yeah, I mean, starting with that, obviously, when you start that young, when you're 14, you're very, very easily influenced, and you try to be whatever you think other people expect of you. And there's a certain standard behind the job. Also, I started in 1999. It's just a very, very different time. We're in 2021, and everything is digital now, and there's social media and all that stuff, but back then there wasn't any. So it was just me with like a map going to Milan or to London, or and having like a chaperone to the set and stuff, because I was that young. And so that influence that you get is not one that you can then kind of shift into what you feel is more identifiable, or where you feel more safe or heard or seen. It's quite a narrow path. And then that gets broader and you get older, but you kind of like stick with that path. And so I noticed that I definitely in my career became someone that was molded, that was kind of created for being a model and not for being Dorith, right? And I can't say that I wasn't myself, because I don't think I've ever had any difficulty with being myself in doses, but there's a spectrum. If this is fully being yourself and this is fully being someone that is created, then obviously there's a spectrum, and I was kind of sliding over it. And when things happen on the inside, the internal processes of being a hypersensitive person, dealing with anxiety, at some point getting panic attacks, and resulting in a depression at some point, then that being myself, even though I thought I was completely being myself, I actually wasn't. I was hiding a lot. And yeah, after 10 years of kind of keeping that inside, let's say from like 19 to 29, which was basically my proper full-time career. After keeping that in for so long, I didn't really know. I had nothing to lose except my mind. That's what I keep expressing to people. And I didn't want to lose my mind, even though I already thought that I had lost my mind. And so I started talking about it, and I started talking about it kind of everywhere, on the plane to strangers, or on a train, or, but I also spoke to my parents. My parents are very, very open and liberal and understanding, and have never pushed me in a direction that I didn't want to go. So that was a safe place. And then when I started talking about it, I realized that there were so many people left, right, and center who echoed the same feelings, who were just as alone, who felt just as crazy, who had also, considered going to an asylum, or had thought about suicide without actually wanting to act on it, and didn't dare to tell anybody, because what if their friends would think that they were suicidal? And like all these stigmas kind of came up. And I realized that this is something that we need to deal with, because, or actually deal with, we need to change that. We need to soften the blow of society's look on these internal processes, because they're not as dark and difficult as thought to be. And also that is a spectrum, because there's obviously very dark, feelings that pair with depression, or with things like borderline personality disorder or being bipolar. And obviously there's a whole spectrum. But a lot of that spectrum is people just not knowing how to talk about it. So I switched from photography to filmmaking. And a very, very long story short, I made a pilot series of 4 episodes of people talking about these things, about these phenomena. And I kind of soon realized through the process of research and such that it was very autobiographical, but that I basically was looking for people to kind of tell my story, but through their experiences. And it was so relatable and so beautiful and enlightening to create a group around me where people were just the same. We're all very different, but we're the same because we share that we are not being held back anymore to discuss what happens on the outside as well as on the inside.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
I,
that's me.
yeah, I think that's an amazing journey that you made. But when we were chatting earlier, I also heard you talking about as a model how, sometimes, no, lots of times you're being asked to play a role, play a part, show up as a certain personality, and that you have to create an image, for example, for a brand or a product, and that it feels like putting on all these masks all the time, and that having to make that switch continuously, that was quite difficult for you, that it was difficult to find that, which part of all of this is Dorith still. So how did you experience that?
This is a very good question. And thank you for reminding me of this, because this is actually a very, very important part of what I'm talking about all the time. I think that it's sometimes very healthy to have masks on and put jackets on and kind of be different. We all have different me's and different I's and different myself, me, myself, and I. It's like 3 people, right? And like who you are at work may be different than who you are at Christmas dinner, or who you are to your friends, or who you are with your friends that you party with, or the friends that you drink tea with on the couch, right? Like we all have different me's and we express them differently. That's healthy. But that's how you want to express yourself at any given time. And I think that with this career, what is difficult is that you're asked to switch, even though you don't feel like that person at that moment. So if you would see, for example, Lady Gaga, she created an image not to be vulnerable as who she is. So she created an image that stands outside herself, and she can be that image or herself, and she can switch those, but it's her decision. So on stage, she might be someone different than, and
It's like putting a hat on. I'm putting this hat on of Lady Gaga, and now I can be this voluptuous, wild, energetic person who is really out there. While actually, when I take the hat off backstage and at home, I'm more quiet person who likes to charge up by reading a book or just spending some time alone. Is that what you mean?
Yes, exactly. And I'm not saying, I want to have said that, because I'm not saying that that is easy. I'm not saying that taking that hat off and putting it on is easy. But what I mean is that that image is created by her and a team, of course. And a different example would be an actor, right? If an actor gets a script and doesn't identify at all with the role he or she is about to play, then they say no. They, unless their agent like pushes them to do it. But very often there's kind of like a choice in where you feel kind of comfortable. And in modeling, what's quite difficult is that models are often not very heard in their own opinion or what they kind of want or who they are. And so, for example, I'd get a phone call from an agent. You have like an agent in every country, and I'd get a phone call from, London, whatever. And my agent would say, oh, this and this client saw your video with this and this director, and they loved how you move. So they want to book you for this and this. But then the this and this was such a completely different brand than what I did in that video with that director that I felt really safe and comfortable with, that all of a sudden I was really expected to be able to move like really well, you know? So like I'd get on set and I kind of already am set up for failure, because it's kind of like being the monkey that they put the coin in. Like, okay, now you move like that we saw in that video, you know? And it's like,
And
well,
now dance. Yeah.
yeah. So I had a lot of difficulty with kind of having to switch those masks so fast, you know, because I was never somewhere long enough to build a foundation in like the people that I was surrounding myself with, friends, or, you know, to get to know my agents well, and like build kind of like a trust circle. So that's already up in the air. And then literally, because you're literally on a plane all the time. And then on top of that, on set, something is expected of you all the time, and you kind of push whoever you are with your opinion and your thoughts and your expressions. You just shove that under the rug for a day. But that day becomes a week, and that becomes, okay, I'll do one more. Okay, I'll do one more week. Okay, wait, that's a 3-day job. No, but no, I need that money, so I'll do that. Or like, oh no, but that's really good for my portfolio. I'll do it. Okay, but no, but my agent really wants me to do this one. I'll do it. But like in the end, are you just running past yourself, you know? And I did, and I admit that. And it's not necessarily the client or the agent's fault. I think it's the industry that doesn't have any space, or didn't have any space. There's more and more space for that. But it, you know, in the time that I started, there wasn't really any space to feel safe with who I was on the inside. You know, I couldn't be vulnerable or weak. You know, it was seen as weakness if you get tired or you get, you know, sensitive about something. You know, I had this is a true story. I was actually on set in London once again, one day, and had a job for a magazine. I won't name any names, but job for a magazine. It was really big. It was like a 30-page story. And this was kind of like a make or break type of moment for my career. And so there was a lot of pressure on it. My agent had said, like, you have to do this one really well. It's with this amazing photographer, like, you know, do your best. And I'm like, I always do my best. Like, I don't, you know. And I got there, and while I was in makeup, I got a phone call that someone passed away. And so I just swallowed it and went on set. And then the photographer and the stylist were fighting like the entire time. So the stylist would tell me, don't move like that because the sweater will stretch. Don't move like that because the pants don't look good that way. And the photographer would be like, move, you got to move more. You got to move more. So they were kind of fighting, but they were putting it on me. So I was like in this move, stop, move, stop. And like at some point I just broke, and we had only shot like 2 pages. And I broke and I started crying. And the photographer was like, okay, I'm just going to replace you, and picked up the phone and called an agent in front of me and replaced me. And I packed my suitcase, and it was my 3rd country in 1 week. And I packed my stuff, and I went outside and I called my agent and I started crying like crazy. And he was like, it's okay. Every model I've ever represented has been canceled once or twice. And I'm like, I'm not just being canceled. I'm being replaced because they're fighting and I'm not doing it well enough. You know what I mean? And like, it really worked on my insecurity because this job was so important for my career. You know what I mean? It took me a really long time to let that go.
Yeah, and I think especially in the land of artists where most of us are high sensitive, you know, we're the type of people who really put ourselves out there. Whatever we do, we want to do it as good as we can. We want to please people. We want to make sure it's perfect. We want to make sure that we are everything that they expect. So when shit like that happens, it really enters our heart and can really break us at that point. We are so much more vulnerable because of this extraordinary good quality that we have. So it, you know, I was working with an actor once, and he had this role where he was, you know, really playing something. He really loved it, but the character was so dark and heavy that he didn't know how to switch that off. So when he got home, you know, it's a little bit like the head story, but then it's like the movie with Leonardo Dicaprio, with the
Basketball
spinning
Diaries.
Inception,
Inception.
where at the end, you know, the stupid thing is still spinning and you don't know, is it a dream or is it reality? You know, And that's, a little bit extravagant, but you know what I mean? It's like you don't even know anymore which part of all of this is me, and how can I get back to connect with myself. I have so many clients telling me, I don't know what I want. I don't know who I want to be anymore. I don't know what I like anymore, because they're just, like, I don't want to say caved under the pressure, because that's not even true. It's just because the hats won't come off anymore, and they want to please so much, and they want to do it so good for everyone, and all the little criticisms that enter, that are sometimes even meant very, yeah, constructive.
Constructive. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was making a lot of words of that one thing, that are often meant very constructive, but yeah, they just take it in so personally. And then, because being high sensitive, we have a deeper way of processing input in our brain. And that means that one small thing that maybe the stylist told you, and the pressure you already felt inside yourself, made your awareness be even more sharp, made the stress levels go up and up and up, the cortisol going up, making sure that your survival instinct, which is a part in the brain, completely took over. And when that happens, and especially for us, it happens a lot faster, because we want to do everything so good. So we make the pressure even higher for ourselves. But at that point, all the ratio falls out. So then we just start, like you say, it's like stop, move, and we get a little bit in survival mode, and at that point you're just, yeah, lost. You can't do it right anymore, because
Yeah.
the ratio is gone.
I think when the rationale leaves, then and the emotion is all that's left, and you go into autopilot, because that's basically what you're saying, right? Um, I I I I mean, from a personal perspective, I sometimes look back at things I did, and I'm like, how did I do that? But it was autopilot, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, that's, I think, not being able to know how to take the hat off is a dangerous one. I think with acting, it kind of is a little bit of a it's kind of like a, how do you say that? It like kind of belongs to the job, because some actors do method acting, and for example, will get into the skin of the person that they read in the script, and they'll be on a diet of 2 eggs and an apple a day, and they'll lose 100 pounds to do a role. And I mean, if you see interviews of the wives and husbands of the people that have done these roles, often you hear that it was really difficult for them, because they were living with someone else, because they couldn't take the hat off. I think this is kind of like collateral damage. It's like, it's something that kind of happens with that job. But yeah, that switching can be really difficult for anyone in the creative industries. I mean, for anyone ever, really.
Yeah,
But creative
especially
industries,
this time and age. Yeah.
yeah, but I think in creative industries, it's just very expected, and there's a lot of pressures. There's peer pressures, but there's also pressures from the outside. If
Yeah.
you're a very, very big pop star, like a boy pop star, and like all these girls have bought tickets to your show, and the show has to be canceled because you're mentally not feeling well, and like, some people will understand and some people won't, and like there's articles and like people that are gonna kind of stalk you, and like there's these things that are they're pressure. But
Yeah.
that goes all the way from being a really famous pop star to just being in like the local theater. You know what I mean? I think that kind of switching when you're hypersensitive. I mean, you just said hypersensitivity, like we feel everything so much more intense. It like comes in, it really hits us. I actually spoke at a congress a while ago where I said, like hypersensitivity also became my hyperpositivity. It also became my hypernegativity. You know what I mean? Like hypersensitivity just means that whatever you are experiencing, you're just experiencing a little bit more intense, which means that if you do things that really don't suit you, that they cost you a lot more energy. and the things that you do enjoy give you that much more energy, you know. So I think if there was more space to understand that fact and to guide people in that space, then there's also this incredible, you know, fruitful soil, you know, like so much can grow from that. There's so much potential in artists that actually don't grow to their full potential just because they're being held back because of their
Yeah.
hypersensitivity and the non understanding of such
Yeah.
phenomena.
And the fact, more even so, what I notice is the not understanding of themselves. Because this actor I was talking about, he was also, one of the things he struggled with was when he was sitting here and giving an interview, he would want to be somewhere else doing something else. When he was playing a movie set, or when he was on set playing for his show that he did, he would want to be at home and read a book. But when he was at home having time and being able to read the book, he wanted to write music. But that's the thing, when we have to keep switching all the time, your brain is like, it keeps doing it, and it doesn't even know that you are at a point where you can relax and stop. And even today I spoke with a client. She's a chairman woman for a European society thing. And either way, she has to do a lot of talking. And she said, I really feel when something is going to happen, which is like a monster talent we have. You can really sense things that are going to happen, for example, because we sense the vibe, we sense the atmosphere and everything, the energy of people, the emotions that they are shining through. And she was telling me how difficult it is for her not being able to see the people now that she has to speak online. So we worked on the belief that she had, because often it's also the belief of the high pressure. If you could have gone in that same shoot believing that this was just going to be the most fun shoot that you could ever do in between two things, and you could just be you and just have fun, we would not have had the same conversation about it. But that's the thing, how we get into things and the perspective and the meaning that we give to those things, that dictates everything that goes forward from that. So it's a little bit like self-fulfilling prophecy, but then your brain actually really works like that. So I told that that woman, the chairwoman, I said, you just told me a story about how you felt 2 weeks before the uprising in the US, how you felt, and that's, across the ocean. You felt that 2 weeks before, that something was up, that something was going to happen. Are you telling me that when you are in front of the screen, you cannot sense, even if you don't see or hear people? I never see my clients. Now I do it more and more with the video, but often I don't see them, and I don't even hear them, or they type messages. Now, we do it more by video, but it's up to us to, park the judgments that we have and the beliefs that we give to those situations, and tap into that full potential that you are talking about. That we already have that inside of ourselves. It's just not giving another meaning to the situation, and just start and connect from your own source. But in order to do that, you just have to be in touch with that source, of course. So
Yeah.
interesting.
I mean, look, I stand behind a lot of things you say, only I do hear you say just a lot, and it's not just, you can't, it's not just, you know what I mean? Because like just tapping into that when your brain does have a different frequency is like super difficult, because what happened on that set wasn't wasn't me being insecure. It was me having just lost somebody and two people telling me the absolute opposite to do. You know what I mean? It's like someone tells you paint it red, no paint it yellow, paint it red, no paint it yellow, paint it red, no paint it yellow, you know, and like meanwhile I was just really emotional. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but that's the thing. There was a different load on the situation, you know? And of course, it's not in that case, it's not just pressure. It was also, the loss of someone and the emotions. But if you're in a good day, I'm so sure, Dorrit, that if they would have said red, no yellow, you would have made orange, the most beautiful orange, and they would have both been happy because you are that talented. But in this case, the situation, created a different aspect, a different way for you to get into the same situation. But
Yeah.
someone who is cheerful and joyful and not having to deal with just losing someone over the phone minutes before you have to go do that, while being said that this is the most important thing you're ever going to do, just that's a different vibration. And to be honest,
Well, exactly. And I think, I mean, there's one saying that I stand behind and really hate at the same time, which is the show must go on. I think the
yeah,
show must go on is so true, and I do it. Like I've sat on planes with migraines where I had to go to the bathroom every 6, 7 minutes to throw up, and just to fly from New York to Germany to go see a client who wanted to see my hair in real life, and then get back on a plane back to New York and throw up again and be sick for 12 hours. And like, yeah, the show must go on, right? But there's a difference between me choosing to sit on that plane because I do want that job. So I choose that the show must go on. I'm doing it. Like I'm just gonna mind over matter is has been my motto for years. You know, mind over matter. Let's just do it. There's a difference between me choosing that and someone being very unkind. And on that set, people didn't understand that that I might be some, not even for my hypersensitivity, but just me being like a human, you know? And I think on that set, there was no space to be sensitive at all, let alone hypersensitive. You know what I mean? And I think in this industry and in a lot of creative industries, there is a pressure already there. So you never come in blank, you know what I mean? So it can never be 100% like the choice to make that beautiful orange when you're kind of like being pulled and swayed. And especially when you're young, you know, I'm much older now. This happened when I was 22 or something. Um, and learning to, how you said, like learning how to get to know yourself, knowing where your boundaries are, knowing how to sway away from these opinions and judgments. And you know, still I think in a general sense there's a lot of kind of I'm just going to call it unkindness, um or unopenness to sensitivity just in general in the creative atmosphere. And I think this is an extra pressure for the people who have to fill in the blanks, um, if it isn't quite, you know, in your own kind of ballpark. For example, if a singer has a label and the label is like forbidding all these things, and so the singer songwriter, for example, is sitting at home thinking, oh, I'm going to write a song, but there's all these rules. You can't say this in the song, you can't say that in the song, and this and this and this and this. Well, I have several friends who started their own labels just to release their own songs that then actually became really popular
yeah, that's amazing.
because people actually really had a hunger for to hear the reality, you know.
Yeah.
But a lot of labels would protect people from that reality just to kind of create like this commercial atmosphere. But like, why not tell the truth? Why don't we talk about sexuality? Why don't we talk about, you know, and I don't mean just the sexuality of shaking your ass in a music video. I mean just, you know, sexuality
Intimacy, yeah, making
and
love, all the things.
identification and sensuality and depression and anxiety, and you know, to loop back to that topic, you know, and admitting that being hypersensitive is difficult and creating space for that, and therefore allowing people to make it hyper positivity. Because when you're not scared, when you have the space and you're not scared that someone's going to think anything of it, that potential comes out really naturally. Like I've noticed it so often, not only with myself, but with people around me, that I'm like, I look at a friend who is, much younger than I am. A couple weeks ago, this happened. And we were on set, and I looked at her from a distance, and I was like, she is so unapologetically being herself right now, because everyone in this space respects each other and is kind and is leaving space for whatever is going to be said or done. And then within, I think, 10 minutes after that, a conversation started with the photographer who said that he had been going through really bad panic attacks. And then the art director said, "Oh my God, I had such a bad panic attack last weekend. It was insane. Like I thought I was going to die. And I've had these things so often. Why do I still feel that way? And we got a conversation." And it was the most light, bright colored conversation. It wasn't heavy at all, because there was space. There was space for everyone there to just be who they were in their own sensitivities, in their own, you know, bad sides, in their own dark sides, and it
And
was
there's
really
a lot
great.
of strength in that. And I think
Extreme.
it's because of people like you who are opening the door. And you are also on your Instagram, you have 15,000 followers. There is a lot of pressure for a lot of influencers. There's a lot of expectations, but you have been just showing yourself, showing up as yourself. And you've really opened the door for people to see what's going on behind the scenes, and how are these people feeling themselves. That's the reason why we get a look at the inside scoop here, to see what's going on the inside. And it's true, for years there has been no room at all to discuss those things. You couldn't, because then people wouldn't hire you anymore. But now people like the rawness, people want realness. And yeah, I'm so happy to see that evolve every day. Every day we're getting closer and closer to being able to really show up as ourselves, and to show that to the world, and to just, you know, I don't even want to say be proud of that, but just love it. To just love yourself, and just love to show yourself as you are, and that it just can be. It just can be.
Yeah, I have how do I say this? I I agree. I love that things are getting more open. I also think that it's a point of reference, or like a horizon, where we're obviously in a field where we are seeing the changes. And I think there's still a lot of countries, cultures, subcultures, groups, jobs, whatever, where the change isn't so visible yet. But to get to that Instagram, you just said, how a lot of people are having difficulties showing themselves because there is a high expectation. For example, now with COVID, I actually noticed that and let me say, this is not a judgment, because live and not live. I'm very happy if someone sits in the Seychelles and shows photos of that, and like makes people go there. It's awesome. It's beautiful there, and like it's great. But I was recently talking to a friend about this too. I think the standard gets higher and higher, but the standard is fake. So the filter is fake and the water is made even bluer. But like the water in the Seychelles is already really blue. Why do we need a filter to make it bluer? It's already gorgeous, you know what I mean? And this girl is already gorgeous, but yet she needs a filter that makes it look like she had a nose job. And like, this is dangerous, because it makes 12, 13-year-olds that have a tablet or a phone think that that is the norm, the standard. And I think that when people make choices, do as much plastic surgery as you want, you should really do what you want. But I think that when it becomes an influence to a really broad group, so like to society, basically to a culture, then that becomes dangerous. And so I realized that my Instagram for a really long time was actually representing me as a model. So it was representing me as that girl that was, photoshopped and was wearing these amazing clothes that I myself actually couldn't even afford. And, these amazing lights in these amazing studios with wind machines and great locations and stuff. And I'm like, but wait, that is me. I love doing that. There's a lot of really good sides to this job. It's wonderful feeling glamorous and, you know, all that stuff. But wait, I need people to know that that is not who I represent, you know, who I represent.
Yeah,
Like
in life. Yeah.
exactly what that is for me and on the inside. And I was like, you know, complaining about how there was so little space for certain topics, but meanwhile, I wasn't actually showing it. So during COVID, when the first lockdown started, and then, you know, like countries were kind of shutting down and people weren't able to go to those Seychelles anymore, or like have these photo shoots in these grand studios anymore. And all of a sudden, I saw a lot of feeds that I hadn't seen in a while kind of pop up, and artists that weren't, you know, 20 anymore, that were, you know, in their 40s or their 50s, and like certain songs were released, and all of a sudden they started going off on my radar, and I started seeing real art again, you know, like real artistic creations. And I was really happy about that. And then I was like, okay, what can I do? And I live in a really small apartment in Amsterdam. And I thought, okay, well, I have a big window. I have lots of light in the summer. This was obviously, you know, March, April, May, June, July. Um, I have a camera, I have a tripod, and I am a model. Why don't I just like start actually challenging these, you know, societal um, uh, topics? You know, these ideas, ideals, and ideologies, right? These three I's. Um, and so I started taking self portraits and decided not to post anything else on my feed but these self portraits, in which I do talk about, you know, transgender and
Yeah.
sexuality and mental health and racism and you know
Which are amazing, by the way. I saw them. They look really great. It's really, and really professionally done as well.
thank you. I appreciate that. Um, I really, really enjoy making them too, because it's just me. I mean, I just said it, me, myself, and I. It's three people, right? So it's me, the model, me, the photographer, and like, what do I want as a model? What do I want as the photographer? And then
Director.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I have to do my no, well, like an art director, yeah, I have to like pick what I'm gonna wear in that photo, or like how it represents what I'm trying to say. And sometimes that is just literally a lipstick, and sometimes it's an outfit, and sometimes it's a body makeup, and sometimes it's a fake lash, or you know what I mean, like it is something that represents. And then because I've been working on Together Alone, the mental health project, I started kind of interlacing what I was doing with the self portraits and the things that I was doing with mental health. And I started noticing that when I posted things on my stories about those things, that people were really, really getting into conversation. So usually on a post where I was just whatever, sitting in the sun in my bikini, I, you know, people would just like it because it was me in a bikini, but there was nothing behind it. There was no depth, no, you know, there was no levels. And now people were really like getting onto like IG Live and like starting to ask me questions on DM, and like trying to, you know, and they were all really brave and telling me their stories and opening up about things. And shit, this is great, because I'm talking to all these people that I have no idea, you know, I don't know them from Adam, like they're strangers. And you know, I talk to people in India and Pakistan and you know, and Germany and everywhere about these things, about these ideas, ideals, and ideologies. And they have a different take because they're in a different culture, and they have a different upbringing, and they have a different age maybe, or they do have, you know, and it starts these conversations. And then all of a sudden internet or social media isn't dangerous anymore. It becomes really necessary because it's our means. You know, we can't just go to a bar and strike up a conversation with someone about politics. We have to, you know, like converse and be open. And so I really enjoy talking to strangers. Is in any case my favorite thing, especially strangers without expectations, because they're the most blank canvas to be painting on, you know, because they don't expect anything and they don't know you from any other time. So you can totally profile yourself in the way that you feel about something in that moment. Um, but yeah, I think social media as an influence is an influential platform, um, is positively changing in that way, and rightfully so, because people are realizing that certain boundaries should be set on social media so that people don't feel alone, insecure, unheard, unseen, or lied to. Because when a lot of things are fake, fake news, fake tan, fake nails, fake skin, fake,
No.
everything fake. Yeah.
Yeah.
Then obviously, then people lose touch of what reality is. I actually saw a meme yesterday that made me laugh. It said this guy that was kind of looking like, what the fuck, and it said, fake nails, fake lashes, fake hair, fake tan, fake this, fake that, and they want a real man.
That's amazing. Yeah.
which in itself is already a topic, because what is a real man? That doesn't exist. You have a man anatomically, and you have a man psychologically, and you have a man that is societally made for us, but like, boys don't cry, man up, be this, be that. Someone sent me a photo of a concealer, an eye concealer skin cream for men, and it's called war paint. And it says, oh, like something like, oh, so now masculinity is like so fragile that we just need to call concealer war paint so that it's like manly.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, you want to wear concealer? That's completely fine, but we're going to pretend that you're a soldier.
Yeah. I love it. Thank you. I think that's like the lightest way possible to, finish our lovely conversation. Thank you so much, Dorith. It has been an absolute joy to talk to you. And I'm so happy that you are like one of those inspirations on social media for all of those people who can really relate to you. So is there like one tip that you would love to give people as a gift to end this?
Absolutely. And it will probably compress everything that was said in this conversation into one thing. Start as early as possible to be unapologetically yourself, because I waited way too long to find my way back to myself. I had to be really far removed from myself to kind of like look back and be like, wait, where did I leave? Where did I where did I leave those sides of myself that I liked, Like let's reconstruct those. And that can be a lonely path, and one that can be unnecessary. I think if you're unapologetically yourself, little side note, while being kind, because obviously you can just be
Exactly.
like, this is me, I'm just going to be an asshole. But yeah.
No bulldozer, but yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, soldier on, be yourself, and find people that appreciate that self, find a group of people around you that, or even just one person, who understands and sees you. In Avatar, the movie, they don't say "I love you," they
I
say
see
"I see
you.
you."
Love that.
And I think this is the most wonderful way of actually saying "I love you," because when you see someone, you can actually tell if you do have love for that person. So see yourself first, and then find people that see you.
That was exactly what I wanted to add. So I'm so thankful that you did, because it all starts there. When you love you, when you see you, then automatically your surroundings will start resonating on that vibe. They will start to see you. You will start to attract people who adore you for who you really are. And it's so beautiful. Thank you so much, Dorrit. I'm really happy to see you.
Let's paint orange.
Let's paint fucking orange.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much, love. See you soon. Bye.